And we're live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first live chat for 2026. Man, I can't believe it's already 2026, and yet still not a Mets World Series. So there we go. That's all has to be said, right? All right, we wrap it up. That's it. No, just kidding. We have a lot to talk about tonight. There's a lot of mystery going on. First, I want to say thank you to everyone watching on YouTube, X, Twitch, Facebook. Is a little screwy for some reason. Every week, I don't know what's going on. It won't connect to the business page now. We're trying to. It's on my personal one. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But of course, I also want to say hello to all of the premium members out there who are in the premium dashboard. Outstanding. We already have some pretty good questions, including one about the NFL. Oh, there we go. And of course, we're going to have a fun evening tonight. No coffee tonight. I'm trying to adjust my clock in terms of getting better sleep, and drinking coffee late at night apparently is a bad idea unless you're chasing storms or trying to stay up late to watch a TV show. So we are just drinking water, but I will have to say that the coffee I have gotten from Manhattan, I gotta get the coffee later because I have been drinking it and it has been outstanding. Um, hey, honey, can you get me the coffee, the packet? I want to make sure I say it properly. So, and they're not sponsored or anything. I just love the coffee. So we'll get that in just a moment. But we have a lot to talk about tonight. Now, just so we go over the rules, because it's a new year, so let's remind everybody. As far as the questions, all questions are answered for premium members here. Here we go. Here it is. The Metropolitan Coffee House. Let's see if I can. Let me go back to Five Borough Blend. This is it right here. I am drinking this every morning, and I had really the first one right around, right after the live chat where that failed miserably. Right after I started to be able to eat again, um, I was so after I drank it, I was so amped that I literally stayed up for like hours, like crazy. Um, I was flying around the house watching comedies and stuff. It was crazy. So that was a lot of fun. So definitely going to be using that when we have winter storms. And yes, that will be in this year. And no, not in December, but actually in January and February. Talk about that in a moment. But I just want to go over just so everyone knows. Okay, so we're on the same page here. All questions are answered to premium members because they're premium members and they pay and they're awesome. Then for people on social media, I pick out the best question. All right. Usually I start with YouTube, I check out Twitch, I go to X, and the reason why I do that is that sometimes I get a lot of questions like, "What's it going to be in my backyard?" And no, we're not going to do that because then I made that mistake once, and I got so many questions the same. But what about my place? What about mine? What about my address? It was insane. So lesson learned. Never doing that again. So let's talk about the pattern overall. Okay, there's a lot of focus about the tropics. And hey, look, there's a lot of changes going on, obviously. But let's think about this here. What's really driving this weather pattern? Is it a dying La Nina? Is it the MJO that has been in a neutral state for God knows how long? No, those features are nothing more than adjectives. They add a little bit of spice to the pattern, but they are not driving the pattern. Okay. Some years, tropical forcing 100% drives the pattern, like a moderate La Nina, strong MJO pulses, strong El Nino, a moderate El Nino. Absolutely. Without a question, those will drive your pattern. The key to doing long range forecasting is never be too specific. Like saying like it will definitely snow on this day. Like you never want to do that. Um, what you want to do is look at the different parameters and look what's influencing your pattern the most. And never lock yourself into a hard rule. Rules are kind of guardrails. They're not meant to be like locked in dictation. All right. So when you have an MJO phase, you shouldn't just say, well, MJO phase equals this, therefore that. Or El Nino equals this, therefore that. Or La Nina, you get my point, right? You need to understand for that year, for this time period, what are the primary influences in our weather pattern? And the primary influences are the evolution and changes within the polar vortex. We started out our winter with well below normal temperatures and several snow potentials. So some people got plenty, other people missed out, but still the potentials were there because the polar vortex got nuked in November around the same time we were eating turkey. We all know this. This factor has not changed at all. Okay. The La Nina was still there. It peaked around Thanksgiving. It has been weakening ever since. But the one constant in our weather pattern is the polar vortex evolution. Now, when we started off in November, it got nuked. Ever since then, it consolidated, but we continue to see what we call EP flux. This is a really important observation. This is telling me, and you can also see this graphically in another way with the Earth News School going down to 70 millibars and seeing the transport from the mid levels in the troposphere to the higher levels, the high latitudes in the troposphere, in the stratosphere. This is transport of heat. When you're transporting heat from one lower level to an upper level and into a higher latitude, you're going to have fundamental influences on the structure of the 500 millibar pattern and also the stratospheric pattern. And so if you have that continuously happen, you're going to get these pulses. Now, what we start off with was massive warming because the polar vortex again got broken up, right? So that factor was separate from anything with Siberian snowfall or anything else. That just kickstarted us into a totally different regime. Now we cool down. We have a lot of cold stratospheric environment, but our next warming is already showing up here in Siberia. Siberian snowfall. It's having its influence now. Usually that's a factor in January and February, especially the second half of January. Most winters, we are waiting for the action to get going after the holidays. You hope for a snow flare or two, but for the most part, it's pretty quiet until we get to the holidays. And then we're kind of hoping, when is the polar vortex going to be disrupted? We've already gotten past that, all right? So we are at this point where we're seeing this cooling, and that cooling is leading to contraction. That contraction has led to a thaw right now. So it's quiet. And naturally, the usual suspects run around and say winter's canceled or we'll never see a cool down again or all this other nonsense. They do it every year. If I had a dollar every time that they've done this, I'd be able to buy X at this point and maybe even the Mets. Who knows? Um, that's how many times these people try to pull this nonsense and they never learn. In over 20 years of forecasting, the same people say the same. Oh, winter's canceled. It's over. It's done. Every time there's a thaw, you can time it. It never, ever ends. But in reality, changes are on the way. How do we know this? Well, let's take a look at what the zonal winds are. Now, understand, now this is at 10 millibars. When you have weak zonal winds, that's certainly one factor that would lead to a weak polar vortex. You could still have strong winds at 10 millibars and still have significant stretching going on at 70 millibars that influences the troposphere. Of course, the weaker you are at 10 millibars, the more likely you're going to have a very weak polar vortex. Now, what I take from this is that Hey, we've been forecasting this really strong polar vortex and it keeps on failing. And in reality, what we keep on getting is another knockdown. This is a sign of stretching. So think of the polar vortex like a rubber band, and we keep on pulling it, and then it comes back, pulling it, and then comes back. So every time we pull it, we get another wave of cold air and storms and potential for high latitude blocking, and then it contracts. So what we want to do here is try to figure out the timing of the stretching and the contracting. And you can kind of see an echo here in the way that is evolving. In terms of a lot of noise here showing the same sine wave we've seen since roughly mid December, where we get a contraction, stretching, contraction, stretching, contraction, stretching, and that continues. Model guidance typically has a very difficult time handling this the further out you go. So you get all these sine waves all over the place. But the overall theme remains the same, okay? Where you're getting this stretching and contraction motion. So this means that you're going to have warm periods, cold periods. So we already know that. Then we take a look at what the model guidance is saying. And again, you don't want to take this verbatim. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes here. Everyone says, well, look at the ridge here, look at the trough here, 15 days out. No, 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 no. Just look at the overall themes, okay? Because if you try to be too specific, again, you're going to get burned, okay? So the theme here is that here's our contraction. Here we are. We're right here, contraction. Here comes our warm temperatures. We get a thaw. The polar jession retracts northward. And then here we go again. Once we get to 7 days out, there's our stretch. That gets enhanced even more over the next 10 to 15 days. So what do I take from this? Well, I know polar vortex is going to stretch from Siberia to North America. I don't know the exact details yet in terms of whether or not we see a split, like what the 0Z guidance was showing. Here's the 0Z guidance. This was like everyone's getting excited about this. And I was like, all right, certainly stretching, certainly pretty impressive. What is the difference between this and this? The amplification of this ridge. It's possible. No reason to get worried about and stay up late and follow the model guidance every 6 hours or 12 hours. Just know stretching's coming back. Another cold wave's coming back from mid-January on through probably early to mid-February. So that means winter storm potential opens up. Now, the difference between this one and the last one is that the La Nina is dead. I know, you're looking at the data and say, Stephen, the La Nina's still here. No, no, no. It is dead. And I'm going to show you why. Right now, our SOI is going in our little sine wave influence here. This is being driven by the MJO, not by La Nina. Because if it was driven by La Nina, it never would have gone negative here. So La Nina is not really having an influence on tropical forcing. The MJO is about to go into phase 6 and head towards phase 7. And all the guidance suggests that's going to happen. Phase 6 and then phase 7. So what does that mean? Well, it means that convection around the dateline is going to be picking up. But hey, don't take my word for it. Take a look. It's been firing up and then falling back. You have a lot of short waves rotating through the region. We have subsided a little bit tonight, but you can see this was over this area with this upper level low. We're seeing a lot more convection to the south of Hawaii, a lot of convection around the dateline. If you have a lot of cold water, you're not supposed to see this. This means that a lot of warming is taking place. And that's showing up also, let's see here, in our daily values, where this is starting to collapse pretty quickly. All your cold water is focused here. So what does this mean in terms of why do I think that we're going to see La Nina collapse? Well, besides the fact it's fallen together really nicely, take a look at the subsurface. This is the surface. Let's roll down. I know I'm trying to go slow so no one gets a headache here. Here we are. Okay, so this is the first thing you want to check here. You see how warm this is getting? That's a big warning sign. If you're going like, hey, La Nina, and it's going to torch in February, you don't want to see that. So what do you really see? Once the MJO gets into phase 7, all this warm water gets to expand, and you're going to get downwelling all here. It's going to basically warm up any cold water that's left. And you could see over the past couple of weeks that cold pool is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Now, right now, all the cold water is literally in Nino 1 plus 2 and 3. So that's why it's the coldest. Once it loses this influence, boom, gone. And the reason why this is important is because now you got the potential for high latitude blocking, polar and Arctic air coming back into the game, and now a more active subtropical jet stream. And now we could start talking about, along with Miller B storms, Miller A storms. So don't put away the snow shovel just yet. Again, no guarantees. Never guarantee anything. But we're going to be busy, I think. At the very least, we're going to be tracking. And of course, this makes perfect sense because the last week of January, where am I going to be? I'm going to be in Houston for the AMS. You know my luck. And here's the thing with the AMS, if I'm down there, and this is something I've been really trying to put and wrap my head around. Um, of course I'll do my best to update, but it's not so much like, oh, I'm busy. I don't the internet here is great. We got like gamer type internet here with fiber, and it's really up there, right? With speed. It's not the same thing. I'm not gonna be able to pull off a video in Houston in a hotel room. I'll try. It's not going to be pretty. So we'll see. Although maybe I can get some special guests while we're doing that if something does pop up. We'll see. We'll play that by ear. But in the meantime, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Now, yeah, I mean, we could definitely do shorts. We could do short videos, like an hourly update with like a video, something of that nature. I don't want to leave you guys hanging, but it's kind of bugging me. Like, the internet out there, from my experience at these hotel rooms, are not that great. Not that I would expect it to, you know. So right now it is pretty warm out there. Temperatures in the 30s and 40s. Nice thaw going on. No rainfall or anything. Hey, look, our subtropical jet stream's getting a little more active. Look at that. Nice precipitation down there in Texas, down in the southwest. Our next disturbance is getting itself organized and getting ready to march its way eastward, bringing us rain for Friday and Saturday. Actually, probably a pretty good amount of rain. We're talking about half an inch or inch and a half of rain around the region, which we need, by the way. On the water vapor satellite picture, again, this just really stands out to me. Of course, we have the polar jet stream right now because of the contraction. It has lifted further north. But look at how juicy the subtropical jet stream is getting. Look at this. Let's go all the way down here. Hello, look at that. Charging all the way up right into Mexico. Now, yeah, see this here? You see why I have my interest peaked? All right. Now, first of all, model guidance is not going to be handling these short waves very, very well. I mean, mostly because we're missing a lot of data out here. You can only take so much from satellite. We don't have a lot of the soundings and whatnot that we need, right? So you're missing some of that data, and now you're going to throw in interaction with the polar jet stream. Could be interesting. We'll have to watch it. We'll see how it plays out. But certainly, a very active pattern is not far away. As far as the weekend, look, not really dealing with a strong shortwave. What we're dealing with for Friday and Saturday is what we call isotropic lifting. A lot of warm air getting pushed up into the region. with a series of warm fronts, pretty good rainfall. But then we focus in on after this period. So I am very interested. I've been interested for weeks now on the 15th. And now we're getting to the point where my interest is peaked a little bit. I'm very interested to see how this plays out because now I have this ridge axis here. Not exactly the best blocking. Let me see here. Which one do I want to use? Here we are. So right around that time period, not the best negative annual blocking. I'd really want this feature more down here. It's not horrible. We have time to see a change. It's more than 7 days out. But this ridge axis here certainly is better than what we've seen. And we're seeing interaction here with these short waves. And when you see that interaction here, as it stands right now, the way the model data is right now, this is way too positive. This would send everything out into the Atlantic. Very weak, very disorganized, everything east. But with this setup here, it won't take much to get this interaction, this phasing in, and this diving. This feature right here is what really caught my eye because this is diving in on the back end of this trough. So the timing is just a little bit off. So, and that's not too bad being more than 7 days out. But because it's a little bit off in this depiction, you don't get the ability to phase completely. It starts to interact, you get some organization, but there's a lot going on here. And the reason why I say there's a lot going on here is that when we take a look at this setup on the model guidance, what stands out to me is cold front, low pressure, low pressure, low pressure. Why am I curious about that? When I see this type of signal showing up, it's telling me that model guidance, and this is true on the GFS and the Canadian, and go on with whatever else you want to pull up, it's all saying that there's too much noise going on here. And the model guidance is struggling as to where exactly you want to have that low pressure system develop. This right here could be convective feedback error leading to this low, and this low might be the primary low. If this low is the primary low, then you're pulling in cold air faster. And 850 millibar temperatures during this time period are not that far off from making things interesting. Not that far off at all. So I am not calling for, I'm not saying that there's definitely a slam dunk winter storm here, but it certainly has my attention. That I've been saying this for roughly a week and a half. Watch out for the 15th to 16th because this is when we're going to start to see our changes. And this is not far off. There are a couple of things I'd want to see changed. For one, I want to see this ridge axis a little bit stronger over Montana. I would like to see this ridge more here than here. Then what I'd also want to see is more interaction here with this feature, carving this out more into a neutral trough here rather than a positively tilted trough. But we're not that far off from the physics of driving that. This feature right here is okay, but if you can get this to swing into a negative state, you got some things interesting here. As it stands right now, rain, snow, showers, that's about it. If this becomes a little bit better organized, we got things to talk about. So we got a couple of days to watch this, more than 7 days out. We'll see where it plays out over the next couple of days. By Monday, we'll know for sure if we have anything to talk about or not. But that would certainly make an interesting live chat for next week, that is for sure. So there's something to keep an eye on. We'll see. As it stands right now, it's a miss. It's just a few rain, snow showers. But we know what to watch for. Then we get to the 20th, 19th to 20th. And again, this is another time period where you're seeing the Malgine struggling with all of the changes going on in the atmosphere. Again, let's go back to 500 millibars zoomed out. This is on the European ensembles again. And we'll go to that time period. And what stands out is that the ridge in the Gulf of Alaska just keeps on building. So we're driving cold air southward. We have a very progressive subtropical jet stream. Our east based La Nina type of influence is out here. We have a 50-50 load. It's a little bit too far north. So I'd want this feature down here to really get blocking. It's a little bit too far north here. We have our negative NAO blocking. It'll show up statistically as a negative NAO, but this feature needs to be here, not way up here. If it shifts down here during this time period, then again, the second time period where the storm potential is a little bit higher. What I don't like about this whole setup is that your ridge axis here really should be here. Okay. You could drive a storm with this type of ridge here, but the storm is very progressive unless you get something here. So again, based on that, go back to 500 millibars. What stands out to me is that, man, we have a lot of sheared short waves here. And when you have this signal this far out, again, it leads to a lot of questions. What do I do with that? What do I do with this feature here as it's diving in? If this feature's diving in the backside of this trough shouldn't be this positive. Either this doesn't exist or this is too positive. So again, these are questions we're going to have to wait and see how that plays out. And then going forward, the big error I see here is that this is typical where towards the end of these models, it tries to phase every shortwave into these mammoth upper level lows. So this is probably overdone. What does this look like on the ensembles? Well, let's take a look here. That far out. And you see more of a competition between this feature well below normal heights and this feature well below normal heights. What should happen, based with the MJO shifting into phase 7, is that this feature pushes a little bit more into Alaska, this pushes more towards the plains, and this feature here stays out here. So don't be surprised to see this change a little bit. I don't see strong positive PNA signals here because that simply is not the type of pattern that we have in place. This is a positive TNH pattern. I've said that since October, and there's no signs of that changing whatsoever. So you get a lot of progressive systems. Every so often, you can get something pop to be more of a major storm. You could pull off a Miller A storm. But the point I'm trying to make tonight, winter is not over. There's a lot of interesting features out there, and there's a lot to watch. So for the next 90 hours, by the way, I know, by the way, the Eagles game, let me just touch on that real fast. No more rain. The rain will be gone by then. Watch out for the winds, though, picking up around 10 to 20 miles per hour with gusts around 25. Should make for an interesting game. Nice, nice field goals, right? Because teams do really well when they start missing field goals. So that should be fun. So again, we'll have our showers come in on Friday. It won't be a washout on Friday, but certainly a few showers here and there. Friday night into Saturday morning, lots of rainfall into Saturday night, and looking at about a half an inch or inch and a half of rain throughout the region. Sunday is quiet, Monday's quiet, Tuesday's quiet, Wednesday's quiet. Here we go for Thursday, and this is where things get interesting. For now, we'll go rain, snow, showers, but I'm telling you, this needs to be watched, and we'll just keep an eye on it. All right. So right now, prepare. Don't panic. Make sure you have your supplies if you used them already with the storms we've had, and go from there. So with that, we are going to answer some questions because we got a lot. Oh boy, we have a lot of them already from our premium members, and then of course we'll check out social media as well. We have some good questions on X, on YouTube, and on Twitch. So in Twitch, it's fun, man. I like the setup here. It's easy to follow along. So first things first. Yes, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Is 2026 is the year where the Mets win the World Series because everyone else falls into a sinkhole. That would be my prediction. Why not? Earth News School shows at 10 millibars that warming at that level is already underway, and the location is right at the same spot that it occurred when the last big stretch towards North America occurred. Yep. I mean, yeah, I'm seeing it too. 70 millibar, likewise, warming in the right spots and at that level. While more consolidated than it has been, it's still pretty diffuse and rather weak. And the circulation itself is a large square. Yeah, see, here's the thing with the polar vortex, and this is the thing that I'm just curious why some people don't pick this up. Model guidance is going to model guidance. What is the theme? I understand you might not be able to pick that up in October, November, even early December, but at this point, we're in early January. This is not a strong polar vortex. There is no sign of this being a strong polar vortex, and there's no forcing parameters to make this a strong polar vortex. It's not there. The only thing that's making this a strong polar vortex is a 15-day GFS. That's it. I don't know. I'm not a genius, guys. I mean, I just pick up the observations. People are screaming winter is over because a brief January warm up, the type of which is the reason the term January thaw has been around for ages, is absurd to the point of annoying at this point. You're annoyed. I've been dealing with this for like 40 years. Every time. And look, I'm 46 years old, so once I got to 7 years old, I started to really, really talk about the weather and annoy the hell out of my parents watching the Weather Channel. And they'd always say, "Oh, well, it's getting warmer and the winter is going to be ending." And it's like, it's January. How is winter going to be ending? Um, and it always fails. Uh, I think it comes back to this myth that it is cold all winter, and it's not, at least not in the northern mid Atlantic. In fact, the National Weather Service put out a very interesting point for Philadelphia for the winter 95-96 that everyone loves to reference and hope that this year's a repeat. 95-96 is the only year in roughly 200 years, the only year where it was below normal with below normal temperatures with above normal snowfall for every month of the winter. Think about that. Whenever someone says it's going to be like 95-96, they are saying it's going to be like a year that happened once in 200 years. Just have that marinate and think about that, and then understand when I rail against that and say no, I am not going to say that, because that is how rare that winter was, and I got to live it, and I was a kid, so that means I didn't have any other work to do. I just had to watch TV and enjoy the snow, so it was a wonderful thing to experience. But winter's not over and snow is back. Is next week a thread the needle scenario? Not a lot of KU features. Yeah, definitely a lot of timing and thread the needle type of setup. Overall, this weather pattern that I see it, I don't see a lot of KU potential. I can't rule it out. We're certainly in a better position than if it was like a raging El Nino or La Nina. Anytime you have a strong El Nino or La Nina, that's a bad sign for all you snow lovers out there. So we're certainly better off than not, but I don't see, again, I'm looking for a ridge around Montana. I'm looking for a 50-50 low, 50 north, 50 west, upper level low to the east of the Canadian Maritimes. I'm looking for a strong ridge in Greenland, building into Canada. I'm looking for a trough axis that's neutral around Mississippi, negative as it gets to the Carolinas. To have all of that happen is extremely rare. So if you see it once, it's a good year if you like snow. If you see it more than once, it's an epic year. And if you see it like 95-96, you're experiencing a once in 200 year type of scenario. Let's see, since the 30th, anniversary of January 1996 blizzard reminder that a week after that, temperatures hit 60 degrees. Thank you. And we had such a heavy rainfall and snowmelt that there was massive flooding. Yeah, and then it got cold after that. So then we had massive freeze too with the lakes. They had ice jams. Yeah, it's amazing. People do not remember that. They think of 95, 96 like as if it was perpetually cold, which was statistically, but we also had massive warm ups. At 70 and 10 millibars, the feed into the polar vortex is coming from all the way down to the tropics and equatorial Africa. Yep, absolutely. 70 millibars is the Atlantic tropics and Africa. 10 millibars coming from the Pacific. Hopefully, the P&A Ridge out west is located in a favorable position for us forward. It, it's going to be variable. I don't see this as a sustained positive PNA winter. I never have, and I just don't see the support for it. I see more support for a powerful ridge in Alaska than I'd see a powerful ridge over the Rockies. I want to share that currently North Adams, Massachusetts, extreme northwestern Massachusetts, we are currently at 27.6 inches of snow. Very cool day. Our first measurable snowfall was November 11th, and we haven't had any major snowfalls. Our highest snowfall was December 2nd and December 27th, a total of 5 inches from both systems. Our average annual snowfall is 78 inches. So, as I would say, more to come, maybe. It's interesting because there's some locations that are well above, and you got some locations that are well below. See, I'm hoping it warms up. My channel is based on the outdoors. I understand. It's getting boring posting bird videos. Yeah, no, I totally get it. Does the MJO Phase 7 help weaken the stratosphere? It doesn't really. I want to be careful here. There is some water voice. Okay, so there is some research into connections between the MJO and stratospheric influences, but it's not a direct one-to-one, and there's a lot of phases that go past it. There is some theories that connect MJO phases in 7, 8, and 1 to greater potential for disruption of the polar vortex. But what you really want to do here is really consider the mechanics behind it, right? So why do we see that? Well, in phases 7, 8, and 1, especially in January and February, you're more likely to have convection around the Western Pacific, which means more convection around the date line, which means more amplification of the polar and subtropical jet streams. The amplification of the polar and subtropical jet streams increases your potential for high latitude blocking, especially over Greenland and northern Atlantic, and also the Scandinavian ridge. When you have those combinations, you're more likely to have a weakening or disrupted polar vortex. But, but that does not guarantee that, right? So, for example, in this winter, you're seeing more influences from the EP flux process, which is part of the whole circulation within the MJO. But this has been going on separate from the MJO. Excuse me. So you have to take apart the processes and then see how they're playing out in the current pattern. It can, absolutely, because you're transporting warm air, and so as you're transporting it into the higher latitudes, into the upper troposphere and stratosphere, you are more likely to induce stratospheric warming events. But there is more than one way to get that event evolving and get that process going. So I wouldn't connect it 100%. I would not say, for example, MJO 7, 8, and 1 guarantees high latitude blocking and weakening polar vortex. I would use that as a potential signal, but then you have to understand, well, what's driving that signal, and then go from there. How heavy will the rain be on Saturday morning, early afternoon? Any flooding concerns? I'm not worried about flooding. No, especially in this scenario because really it's starting on Friday and kind of lingering on and off. The bulk of the rainfall looks to be on Saturday evening. Moderate rainfall, nothing that's spectacular or anything of that nature. If we had more snowpack, I'd be kind of concerned about urban flooding, but a lot of the snow is already melted, um, which has helped a water table that has been a bit low. So we're not really in a position here to have any major impacts in that respect. Next week, we should be seasonable or below normal temperatures. I'm going to go seasonable for now. I want to say if we get more of that interaction with that storm, then we dip below normal. If we don't, then seasonable. Yep, that's true. 95, 96, we had a major thaw. What fundamental would have to change for a sustained positive P&A pattern? Let's see here. I'd want to have the tropospheric polar vortex locked into the southern Hudson Bay, and I'd want a deeper trough in the Aleutians. If I got that, then I could get a broad enough ridge to influence Alaska and the West Coast to pop the ridge to a P&A ridge. That's what I need to see. Let's see what we got here in social media world. Oh boy, yeah, I could see that. First, let me make sure I hit off the Twitch here. With Philly WX, I was thinking obviously the ridge axis over the west has to be at a perfect location to get a storm next week or close to it. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but certainly. But I wonder if we had a 50-50 low, would that ridge axis still have to be perfect, a perfect location, or would there be more of a leeway? Um, and also go birds. The bird is the word. Um, that's a great question. All right, so if we had a 50-50 low, then you already it would kind of retrograde the whole pattern and lock everything in. So if we had that 50-50 low, we had that upper level low to the east of the Canadian Maritimes, that would lock everything in. But because we don't have the ridge axis in the proper position, you can't get the 50-50 low locked in. If that ridge that we were looking at for the 15th is a little bit stronger over Montana, and that would allow the upper level low that is to the south of Greenland shift a little bit further south, and that could lead to a more interesting scenario. Not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that's what we would need for the mechanisms. So if we had the right pattern to begin with, um, we'd already have the 50-50 low already locked in. So yeah, I mean it's kind of one and the other. They play off each other. All right, so let's see what we got on YouTube, and then we'll come back here. There's no threat for freezing rain on Saturday, by the way, or any time this weekend. It's going to be in the 40s and 60s. Yeah, 60s in Philadelphia. So we have no threat whatsoever for freezing rain anywhere in the northern Mid Atlantic. Let's see here. Wow, there is just it is just. Yeah, she's here. She's here. She is here. How are you doing, honey? You want? Yeah, we're both exercising, and I kicked my butt in the gym. That's the thing is that when you get into see some of you younger guys, you may not know this, but once you get into your 40s and you start to like work out and you try to think like as if you're 18, your body severely reminds you that it is not. So so you're feeling it today, huh? Yeah. Yeah. See, yeah, the knees, yeah, yeah, everything just hurts. And the fun part is that you could do a whole workout and you won't have any problem. You'll be fine. Then you wake up the next morning and you get out of bed, and that's when you hurt yourself. See? Yep, yep. That's my favorite. It's like your back locks up. You have no idea why. It's like you didn't even do anything. Like you spend your teens and 20s, you jump and you do stuff on skateboards, you fall, you're fine, no big deal. You get up, you wake up, and this is what you guys have to look forward to in your 40s, right? You wake up and you get hurt. Not even doing anything. You just wake up.
The shit we're experiencing, and I'm like, why didn't anybody warn me about this with aging?
Right? So that's always fun. Let's see. Can't wait to see if people get coastal storm for snow for. Let's see here. All right. Let's see here. Uh, Okay, the Bering Sea rule and the Eastern Asian rule, the BSR and the EAR. I'll tell you one thing about our field is that everyone loves to make acronyms. All the acronyms in the world. So let me play out the BSR and the EAR rules. What they basically are is just pattern recognitions. Sometimes they work really, really, really well. And sometimes you put a little bit too much weight on them. Um, they can be really good in giving you an idea on the overall theme of the weather pattern, but I wouldn't want to lock myself into it. I think it's a great way for pattern recognition, right? But not for details. So that's how I would play that. Let's see, what is the utility of these? Let's see here. Someone already. Oh, I know who. I know who did this in Central PA. They packed away their shovel. Yeah, because you keep on thinking you're in the Great Lakes. All right, so we have this one guy, all right, that's in Central Pennsylvania that doesn't seem to understand that he's not in Syracuse or the Tug Hill, and he keeps on looking for epic snowfall. And I keep on telling him, you're in the wrong freaking place. You have to adjust your expectations, and then you won't be so miserable. It's like someone who just hit the gym and they're upset they're not bench pressing 400 pounds. It's like, what are you kidding me? Well, that's true too. You're going to be in a lot of pain. Not to mention the fact that 400 pounds just falls on you. Let's see here. There will be a ghost of La Nina, not a true La Nina. And this is what I mean by this. The pattern just doesn't switch and just disappears, right? It kind of fades off. Usually, weather patterns kind of fade off, and it's kind of like a ghost that lingers. And then that ghost slowly dissipates. Like, I don't know, just like a really, really dense cloud that just kind of starts to fade away, right? So your La Nina signal might be more of a ridge around Puerto Rico and Cuba and the Bahamas, but it's not strong enough to dominate the pattern. It just kind of echoes out. And that's probably going to be a theme all the way until early March. And then after that, then we have to talk about El Nino. One thing's for sure, if that El Nino actually gets going, we're not going to be talking about the tropics all that much. That's for sure. Because then you're talking about a lot of strong wind shear, but we'll get to that. Uh, let's see here. I'm trying to find some good stuff. Oh, QBO. Okay, so the QBO. Okay, all right. So what's the difference between a weak easterly QBO and a strong easterly QBO? Much like everything in life, moderation is key. Whenever you have a strong anything in the atmosphere, it just throws everything out of whack. Strong easterly QBO, strong La Nina, strong El Nino. Anything strong typically means that everything gets thrown out of whack. And for all you snow lovers out there, that's a bad, bad sign. So when the QBO is way too strong, what happens is that in the easterly event, you can get high latitude blocking that basically it gets overly strong and suppresses everything. In a westerly QBO, you can have a weak westerly QBO and still have enough blocking potential to make things interesting. But if you're a strong westerly QBO, then you're not getting blocking anywhere. Like anytime a negative NAO tries to pop up, it will just get torn apart in a second. So the the orientation and the strength on both Ensno and QBO and other factors as well is extremely important to analyze and then piece it together. Um, so that's where we go with that. Let's see here. Uh, Is it possible? Oh, by the way, it's very unlikely to get the same QBO phase in 2 winters. Very, very unlikely. I think we had it happened once, but it's very, very difficult to pull off. I'm expecting a westerly QBO next year. Uh-huh. Yeah, I definitely like the MJO possibly pushing into phase 8 and 1 before the winter is over. I'm not sure how it gets pulled off, but I do think it will. I'm not sure yet. Still working on that. Was the winter of 2022-23 basically the opposite of 95-96 since the pattern favored cold and snowy conditions for western US and pretty much the whole winter while eastern US torched? Yeah, you could make that argument. Probably different parameters were involved in that, but you could definitely make that argument. Let's see here. Da, da, da. Already answered that. All right. All right. Let's check out X, see if there's anything popped up here. Uh, yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting pattern. And Susan's right here, like we said. So she is here. She is here to help. Let's see what else we got here from our premium members here. We did the freezing rain. What type of pattern do we need to get the prolonged overrunning event of snowstorms in the east? Ah, kind of like the President's Day storm. Okay. First, you actually need a southeast ridge. So let's go here. And I'm not saying this is the pattern that is developing, but you see, oh, hold on, let me go right here. See this signal right here? So what's driving this, right? You have Arctic air pressing south, and you have a ridge out here driving warm air northward. And we have an Arctic front right here. Typically, what happens with these type of storm events is that you get an Arctic front that really drives through the Great Lakes and stalls around the mid-Atlantic. And it stalls because you have a ridge out here. Now, at the 500 millibar level, what you have is not too far off from this signal. You'd want this a little bit further south, and it acts like a cold press. So you get all your warm, moist air coming out of the Gulf right here. That's already set up right here, really nice. You'd want to get rid of this. This you want to get rid of and put it more, excuse me, you want to put it more like well, basically cut this off and have 500 millibar heights rise here. So you want to get rid of this entirely. So what happens is that you get the cold air driving southward. This ridge tries to fight against it, and then you have a stationary boundary with waves of low pressure moving along it. So then when you do that, then you get moisture, you have cold air pressing south, and then basically you end up with a lot of rain in the southeast and up towards Virginia, just an icy mess from, let's say, the Tennessee River Valley into the southern Mid Atlantic and southern New Jersey, and then persistent moderate snow from basically, let's say, southern New England all the way back into the Ohio River Valley. They're really hard to pull off because you have to have the right timing of moisture transport and cold air transport. If either one of these is too strong, then it dominates the other. So, for example, if the ridge is too strong compared to the upper level low here in the pseudo polar vortex type scenario, then the warm air dominates and you end up with an ice storm in Toronto. Okay. If this feature is too strong, then this gets kicked out. You don't really get much in terms of moisture transport. You get a cold front drop through with some snowflakes and then cold dry air. Okay. So you have to have just the right balance. Like Karate Kid, just the right balance and a right interaction to match the moisture transport and the cold air transport. have them clash right over the northern mid Atlantic. Can it happen? Sure. Am I forecasting it? No. But can it happen in this type of pattern? I'd say that's far more likely than your KU storm that everyone's trying to look for. Because again, your KU storm, you have to have everything lock in just right with the ridge. And it doesn't seem like it's that type of winter. But something like that, yeah, I could definitely see a weather pattern pulling that off, especially with a fading La Nina ghost hanging around. Yeah, I mean, it's not out of the realm. I am not forecasting that. I want to make that very clear. But is it possible? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. What does the 540 line mean in predicting snow? It's thickness in the atmosphere. So 540 measures the thickness from the surface up to 500 millibars. And the lower your thickness number, right? Let's say you got 540 and 520, the smaller the column of the atmosphere. And the smaller the column of the atmosphere, the colder it gets. So if you're at 550, that means that the column is higher, right? It's broader. So when you have more room, electrons can move a lot more, and the air mass is naturally warmer. So that 540 line is the thickness in the atmosphere that typically supports snowfall. So you can use the 540 line for forecasting. It works really handily. It doesn't really give you snow ratios all that well, although obviously the colder the column of air, the higher the snow ratio is going to be. But it can be a little bit tricky to forecast. But it basically gives you your rain snow line. So that's basically what you're measuring there in 540. It's simply the measure of the thickness of the atmosphere from the surface to 500 millibars. Let's see, my daughter was born February 7th, 2003. President's Day snowstorm. She will graduate Keene University with a degree in meteorology in May. When should she apply for a job? Wow. I'm always open for interning. I don't have any job positions just yet, but well, I'll hold off the news in a bit. But things are percolating. I'll leave it at that. One thing at a time, indeed, indeed. But I got logs on the fire and plans in the works. I'll put it that way. I'm not just sitting still. Um, Especially with everything else going on with AI and everything else, you got to be able to diversify. And that's one thing I would say. As far as a young meteorologist, I would say this: um, build your own brand. And this is what I mean by this is that the fact of the matter is that the opportunities involved for a young meteorologist to me is more entrepreneurial than ever before. And what I mean by that is that you build your own TV station, you build your own platform, regardless of what you want to do. Okay. Um, have your own website, have your own control over who you are and your professional appearance. Whether you want to be a forecaster or you want to work on coding or you want to work on building models, right? Or doing research, have your own platform, have your own website and build that because the future is independence. It's not TV stations. It's not it's not major multimedia companies because you get dime a dozen, especially the contracts they have there. And I would also suggest for all you college kids out there, um, take courses on business law. Trust me on this. Because when you get out of college, whether it's working for the government or working for somebody else, there's some people who put out some really skeevy nasty contracts. And I've heard some horror stories with TV and with private weather companies. Um, know your contract that you're signing. It's important. Trust me on this. Yeah.
If somebody wants you to promote a product, like you gotta be very careful about those contracts.
Right. Well, not only that, but also with TV stations, be really careful to small print about your likeness and how they're using that for AI. Because I guarantee you, they're not going to tell you, they're not going to point it out to you. So I'm not anti AI. You're not a big fan of it, right, hon? No. But I recognize there are some great uses for it. But there's a lot of kids out there I think are going to get scammed out of likeness. And all suddenly they're popping up all over the place. Yes, exactly. Off their likeness. And it's like, well, you signed that contract, so definitely check that out. Let's see here. Yes, I definitely would say definitely eh, more so than ever before. And Jeff, I would definitely say this for your daughter. Make sure any contract she signs for whatever employment that she's looking for, that there's nothing in there about her likeness or that they have ownership of that. Okay. Because I've been hearing that all over the industry. It's a freaking nightmare. I'm actually doing presentation. That's one of the presentations I'm going to be doing, sharing like, hey, how do I use AI? I use AI. How do I use AI? I use it to figure out how to beat all these algorithms in social media. Why do you, yeah, it's a every freaking so I use it. Okay, if I post this video, what do I need to make it trend more without being the usual right, exactly, without actually creating like the nonsense bullshit that's out there. But that's a great way to use AI. If I want to use a better graphical presentation, I might use AI for some things. Um, but
To a lawyer before you sign any contracts with any media company. I was
oh,
thinking the same
oh
thing.
yeah, oh absolutely.
If you're unsure about something, do like I need a lawyer to look over this.
Yes, never sign anything without a lawyer. Absolutely. Let's see here. See if we got any. It's already past 9 o'clock. What do you know? We're gonna probably wrap it up in just a moment. Um, I think the Packers can be in a snow game. I would not be surprised if we get enough winds coming off just right in Chicago. I would not be surprised some snow showers, but not a heavy snowfall. I wouldn't. Okay, so any talk, I know that there's been this talk floating around the interwebs about a blizzard. I already seen a couple references to it already. One, I have no data, none, to make a statement saying yes or no to a blizzard. None. There's no data. So at this point, either saying no way or yes way is nothing more than wish casting. Okay. Um, and there's just no data to support one way or the other. There's nothing out there. Let's see here. Yeah, I would agree. Definitely talk to a lawyer. What are the favorite MJO phases for winter weather? In March. Oh, first of all, March forecasting is a freaking nightmare. Okay, so first of all, you can't use 10 to 1 because if the snow starts at 5 o'clock, most of it's not accumulating because the sun angle is too high. And it's just a nightmare in that respect. So you're already losing off like 2, 3 inches of snow off your forecast right there. Then you have to hope that the boundary layer cools enough in the evening to start the accumulation. That could take longer than you think, depending on how warm it was the day before or 2 days before. Then after that, you don't know, or you try to struggle with the snow ratio, whether or not it's actually 10 to 1 or is it 8 to 1 or is it in some rare cases 12 to 1 because we actually have Arctic air for like 15 minutes. So March forecasting of snowfall is just a migraine waiting to happen. It is not fun. If you're looking for an MJO phase, technically probably 8 and 1. Well, one probably be the best. Um, but how about we just not? Just for my own sanity. That and snow potential in April is just mind numbing, right? Because it's just like, oh look, we're gonna have 8 inches of snow and none of it sticks. We had 0.8 QPF, but it all melted when it hit the ground. And then we can get winter where in March and April, yeah, I'm just no. That's just a no for me. Ah, no, thank you. Well, we had a great chat tonight. It's already past 9 o'clock, and it's past my bedtime because I'm old. I can't stay up past 9 anymore. I know it's sad. It's sad. It's sad. Even on Fridays. I try to stay awake. Yeah, well, that's totally different. That's when I'm just amped up. Um, oh, I'm not worried about these winter scales. I'm not a big fan of them. I'm not a big fan of it. For some reason, there is there's just been this push to try to characterize everything, right? Especially with storms. You could do it with tornadoes because that's pretty standard. You could do it with tropical systems because that's pretty standard in terms of impacts. I do not believe you could rate winter storms, right? Because 1 inch here means nothing. 1 inch in Atlanta means catastrophe, right? You get you get 8 inches here in New York City, it's a major winter storm. You get 8 inches in Syracuse, it's a day with a snow shower. It's not comparable, right? You can get 20 inches in the Rockies and they say, great, let's go skiing. You get 20 inches in New York City. Great, we're not going out for 4 days and we can't do anything and the world's ending. And we have to have news coverage every 15 seconds. It's different in every location. I don't think that it is wise to do these scales. I don't see the point in it. It's just silly. Just enjoy the storm for what it is and move on. That's it for tonight. I am going to go relax. I'm going to go lay down and take a nap and get some nice sleep. And I look forward to seeing you guys all again next week with our live chat where, hey, who knows? Maybe we're tracking a storm, maybe not. We'll see. And of course, as always, stay safe out there.